Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And we are in Fort Lauderdale today, and we are here with Robert Kesten from the Stonewall Museum. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
It's great to see you. The last time I saw you, you were out on the road promoting Stonewall Museum and up on stage talking at the Florida. There was an LGBT tourism conference, Flock, and that was one of my first times to get a chance to kind of hear more about you in the Stonewall Museum in person. And it seems like you guys are doing some amazing work out there.
We are keeping ourselves busy, and there's no moss growing under our feet, that's for sure.
But it's just been over the last few years. It's especially through social media and so forth. You're doing a great job of kind of getting the word out and keeping the Stonewall Museum visible. But that gives us a little perspective on kind of how that started, because it seems like it just sort of over the last few years, all of a sudden I've been seeing all these things about it.
Well, all I know is the almost 2 years that I've been here. So it will be 2 years on the first day of Pride Month, so
Okay.
June 1st.
Yeah.
And in that time, we've been really beating the bushes, not only to help people understand the importance of libraries, archives, and museums, but also the importance of knowing our own history.
Yeah.
And so we have been doing everything that we possibly can, from programming, from being online, from speaking engagements, to make people aware of just how important history is if we want to make a better future. We can't make a better future unless we know where we've come from and putting things into proper context.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you partner really nicely with a lot of folks. I know you've got a variety of programs that I see pop up. And of course, the one recently was Raising the Bars with a friend of both of ours, Art Smith with GayBarchive. But it seems like you're partnering and tapping into some of the work that folks have done to just sort of bring that to the forefront.
Yes, and the reality is that what other people are doing really plays into that idea of knowing history
Yeah.
and why history is important. The bars certainly have played a very big, almost outside proportioned
Yeah.
importance in the history of the community. I don't know if it's as much today, but we don't know that unless we have a contextual reference. And hopefully, as this project develops and moves forward, we'll get that perspective. And that perspective will let people know why knowing the history of our bars.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because when we think about it, we don't really pay much attention to the fact that the Irish and the Germans and all these other groups had bars too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And bars are really part of community building.
Yeah.
It's a place where the men went after a busy day at work. It was a place where young people went to meet other young people.
Yeah.
Bars have played an important role in society for probably hundreds and hundreds of years,
Yeah.
maybe more.
Yeah.
And we have not really taken the time to give them their due in our community the way they are looked at sociologically and anthropologically, uh, in other communities.
Yeah. That also even kind of not only in your museum's name, but also I saw you have a variety of different programs, but one of them that seemed important and relevant for this year, Stonewall in Stonewall. So that sounds like it kind of taps into that as well.
It does tap into that, but in addition, Stonewall from Stonewall reminds us of just how important reference points are. So
Yeah.
this year, Stonewall will be 55 years old.
Yeah.
55 isn't always a year that you celebrate, but 55 is sort of amazing
Yeah.
because Stonewall wasn't the first protest, it wasn't the first riot, it wasn't the first of many things. But what it was the catalyst for change.
Yeah.
It was the time when we said we weren't going to give up our seat on the bus.
Yeah.
And even though all of those people that came before us, whether they were for women's rights or civil rights or labor rights, uh, there was a time when there was a catalyst that fostered the change.
Yeah.
And Stonewall was that in our community. And so it's interesting how that anniversary therefore becomes important because not only was that uprising important because it got media attention and all the like, but it also created the legacy of Pride.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Pride celebrates Stonewall. So now there will be 54 years of Pride.
Okay.
And next year will be 55 years of Prides. And that really is an engine that
Yeah.
this community has used to move us forward because it allows us to focus on key issues and then make the entire world aware of them. Because now prides happen just about everywhere.
Yeah. And it seems like in the U.S. how important what you're doing, because there's only a small few that I have seen come on my radar. I know in San Francisco, I believe it's the Gay Histories Project, and Los Angeles, the One Institute. But in between all that, it seems like there's just not a whole lot of a lot
Well,
of
there are
anything
more
going
and
on.
more local archives growing all the time.
Yeah.
And those things are important because they can remind a community of what has transpired there. What's unique about us is that we collect nationally.
Okay.
So if something happened in your community and you see it only through your community's eyes, that's fine. But when you want to know what role you play in the pantheon of the nation, you really have to come to organizations like ours that have collections from all different parts of the country. So then you get to see the perspective, once again, perspective and context that are often lacking when you just look at something through one vision,
Yeah.
one lens.
Yeah. Well, you're in good company, because I know that on your board you have Julio Capo. I know I've seen him online quite often, and he's like a great spokesperson for you all. And of course, near and dear to everyone's heart, especially in the LGBT travel world, Alan Beck.
Yes, no, we have some very interesting board members,
Yeah.
and Julio, who is a professional historian at Florida International University, and Alan, the founder of Fun Maps and
Yep.
Fun
Yep.
Travel Guides. So yes, that makes for knowing that we have people in place who can be helpful as we navigate how to bring this information to people around the country.
Yeah. I also love, though, that you're really touching into a lot of the new media and testing and trying out new things. And especially with, you have a Zoom conversation series, and you've even had brought an influencer out there on board and so forth. So, I mean, I love seeing things like that.
Yeah, we had Chris Stanley
Yes. Yeah.
on a few couple months ago maybe,
Yeah.
and he's probably the youngest person that's been interviewed as well, and he didn't have a book. So usually we do authors or
Yeah.
filmmakers.
Yeah.
This was a different situation, and I think that it was exciting because getting the perspective of younger people is vitally important, especially since that engine is vital in this political climate
Yeah.
here in Florida and in a vast number of other places across the country. And it's important that young people tell young people about what's going on around the world. Just this week, Ghana passed legislation that is just crippling for their LGBTQ community.
Yep.
Uganda has passed dramatically painful legislation there. In Russia, the prejudice against the LGBTQ community is fierce, and that is the case in many other places. Ghana holds a particular spot for me because a number of years ago I was invited there by the president to work on the redrafting of their constitution, where we literally worked to insinuate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into the Ghanaian constitution. Well, clearly that is now out the window because once you target one group, it's not long before you start targeting others.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. A lot going on this year, 2024. But on the lighter note, I recently watched on Netflix. I saw Nyad, and then here I am looking. In fact, I don't even have to try. Your social media just comes right into my feed. But I loved seeing all the photos where you actually had the 2024 gala, and you had Diana there, Diana Nyad, and you also had Stacy Ritter from Visit Lauderdale.
Yes, and we also had women from The Stroll, which is an amazing HBO Max documentary
Okay.
that is still available on their channel.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing night. of strong, powerful women that talk across gender,
Yeah.
across orientations, and just really personified the importance of being engaged, the importance of having information, the importance of being able to make intelligent decisions about the future of our community. It was a really wonderful night that was highlighted by having Xander Moritz, who is best known for talking about his curly hair when he was told he couldn't say the word gay as valedictorian of his high school graduation a couple years ago, and is now on leave from Harvard, where he's a student, in order to register as many young voters as possible before November.
Nice. Well, between now and November, December, any exciting things on the horizon here for Stonewall Museum?
There are many. You mentioned one, Stonewall and Stonewall,
Yeah.
which will truly look at that history, that 55-year history. And then we are also working on Back to the Drive, which is an event that helps fundraise for our educational program, which actually takes place from April 11th to the 14th, so
Okay.
only about 40 days away,
Yeah.
where we'll have people from a number of states across the nation talking about best practices in ensuring that LGBTQ plus history and culture will remain in the schools where they're legal and provide access to information in places where it's not.
Yeah.
So that every student that wants to get informed, every parent that wants to know what's going on will still be able to do so. And we push, obviously, for safe and welcoming places, as schools should be, for students and teachers, but also the importance of having our history included in American history.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is great, and I think it's wonderful that for some folks that didn't know all about what you all are up to, that I'm just glad you were able to take a few moments of your time and share a bit of your story and the Stonewall Museum story with our audience here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, because you have an amazing platform, and so hopefully some people will go online and visit us, and even more people hopefully will come and visit the museum. We just put in the first of a series of Women's History Month exhibits.
Yeah.
It opens on March 15th, but it's up, so people can come and experience that. And then Julio Capo will have an exhibit going up the end of the month as well for Women's
Nice.
History Month.
Yeah.
So we have a lot going on, and we want to share it with as many people who are interested in joining us.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being here with me. Nice seeing you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So good.